here's the thing. Like in the, left of center progressive part of the media, the line that you hear over and over again is that there's no difference politically between Sanders and Warren, and like that they want the same things, their policies are the same, like they're both equally good. So why not just support Warren? Is the unstated part of that equation there. But my response to that is, if Sanders and Warren represent the same politics, the same policies, and the same political vision for this country, what in your opinion would account for the vast difference in the way they're covered by the media? Because you have to ask, okay, I was thinking about this last week. Has Elizabeth Warren, outside of the Breakfast Club, had a bad media hit at all? I mean, you can talk about the 23andMe, like the DNA test stuff, but that was an unforced error on her part.
Yeah.
And it was covered by the media because they had to. But like overwhelmingly, outside of the Breakfast Club and Charlemagne the God, who kind of embarrassed her, Elizabeth Warren has not had a single negative media hit. And if you look at the way she's covered in the New York Times, it's like Elizabeth Warren, lessons in leadership. It's never like,
outside of conservative media, which tends to write her in the same column as Bernie, as the candidates are all going too far left. The concern trolling type pieces from the Brett Stevens types.
And you guys notice that when she was first kind of stuck at like 5%, there was all this talk about how, gosh darn that, Elizabeth Warren, she's got so many great plans. Why isn't she doing better? And now she's doing better. But then Bernie dropped all of the fire stuff. Like in a month, he's dropping revolutionary fucking concepts in labor and criminal justice reform, healthcare, housing. And all of a sudden, nobody cares about plans. Where'd the plans go? No, nobody. I don't hear anybody even talking about about Warren in terms of plans anymore. It's like that was there to like keep her viable, and now that she's got her own momentum, and that's no longer a thing you can criticize compared to Bernie.
No, I think that's still part of her appeal. That's still central to it, is the plans thing. I just had a stray thought. Are you on Twitter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you go to the Twitter search? Okay, total stray thought. Total shot in the dark. Can you search? Maybe it's better on YouTube. Can
Elizabeth Warren and then the N-word.
Can you search Warren plans rap?
Oh God. Oh boy.
Maybe you should go on YouTube. Maybe you should go on
Fuck
YouTube.
you.
Maybe you should go on YouTube for this. Is there a rap?
Oh God.
No, I
Really?
I mean, maybe our
fucking God. Thank fucking God.
Maybe I'm sure our eagle-eared listeners will turn something up, but like on first glance, I'm not seeing anything.
There you go. That's an indication that she's not the front runner and she hasn't made it yet. So I wouldn't be overly concerned about it.
I can't bring myself to post about any of this because it's the most insane shit I've ever seen. Like, does no one care that she pretended until she was 70 was like, yeah, I'm Cherokee.
I mean, do you care?
How can you? I mean,
do you care? I don't care.
I think it's funny. I think it shows. I think it's funny, and I think more. I don't care as in oh, she needs to fucking have dinner with WOC or something. I don't know. But I mean, does anyone care when they just talk about how racist Bernie is?
Yeah.
For literally just 3 years straight, and just until she was 65 and one of the Johns was like, beep boop, spit in my hand so I could determine your haplogroup. And she found out that she was less less Native American than anyone. Does no one care that she just did this forever? That's hilarious. It makes you too insane. I am sympathetic to the people on my timeline who I mute a lot of the time, who are engaging in arguments with Warren surrogates. I mean, I'm sympathetic to it because I want to do it too. I want to yell at those people too, but it just drives me too insane. It just puts me in too bad of a mental space.
No, there's no end game to it,
Yeah, no, there's zero.
It has no. You recognize it has no impact on reality whatsoever.
All it does is make me feel bad and hopeless. So I try not to engage with it. But it is if you do that all day, I fucking get it. Because just the only time I really engage with this is whenever we talk about it on the show. And that's when I'm she was a fucking Republican until she could get Medicare. Does no one give a shit? They don't give a shit. because I don't think anyone will check on it. And if you do bring it up, it'll be like, oh, so people can't grow? Like, fine. I think she has like, in my ideal world, my ideal compromise world where like Bernie is president, she has a bright future in the Senate, fucking regulating financial bodies.
Keep in mind, keep in mind that a substantial part of the Democratic coalition now is suburbanites who have left the Republican Party since the Bush administration.
Yeah, no, they got exactly what they fucking wanted with that.
So, if we're catering to upper class, white suburbanites who are essentially conservative in their outlook, if they are going to be the ones who determine the winner of the primaries, then yeah, Bernie Sanders can't possibly win.
I mean,
yeah.
Again, I don't think that's. I'm
saying,
right.
I'm saying
that's
if
true.
then,
yeah,
yes,
exactly.
yeah, but which dovetails with what Matt said.
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah, and like what I'm saying is like, it's like none of this is going to be a cakewalk. Like there's like you can take nothing for granted in that like the everything is stacked against Bernie Sanders other than the overwhelming popularity of his actual beliefs.
The other thing is like Felix, I've also been ignoring what people say online, but
you've all muted me as well.
Yeah, I've muted everyone. I log on and it's just promoted tweets and Donald Trump. And that's the only stuff that I want to interact with anymore. And but what I've noticed, which I get through osmosis, the media coverage and the conversations about the primaries is everyone's sounding the alarm about Bernie Sanders right now. Out of the 8 last national polls conducted within the past 2 weeks, out of the last 8, Biden led all 8 of them. Warren led Bernie Sanders in 4 of those. Bernie Sanders led Elizabeth Warren in 4 of those. This race has been consistent. They've been in these positions for several months now. So I kind of think it needs to be another explanation for the Bernie panic narrative and the Warren ascendance narrative than that. The way I view it as, I think this serves a function to be the off-ramp for squishes, basically. For Bernie supporters who are not actually socialist or really even actually critical of capitalism, who are not really opposed to private profit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like there was this socialist movement after Bernie won because our choices were just this absolutely decrepit neoliberalism embodied by Hillary Clinton and Bernie. And a lot of people went with Bernie just because of how untenable the Clinton consensus was. But now that the choice doesn't exist anymore, now there's this perfect person who can embody the best of technocratic liberalism and identity politics, and also a challenge to the way things are done that does not fundamentally undermine a political and economic structure that they, at the end of the day, we're always down with. And that's why I'm saying that that if Bernie's going to win, it's not going to be because he's won over some chunk of the political engaged American public or the political media, because they're just not, their class interests will be hostile to him no matter what.
I mean, the way I feel about this is like I go back to like when we were talking about the Corbyn stuff in the UK, and again like the just mind-numbing inanity and just unreality of the fact that like everyone has just agreed that like he's an anti-Semite, and like that's the thing you have to deal with. And what I said to our British listeners and supporters is like, look, you can either support Corbyn and be called an anti-Semite and just like deal with that, forget about it, write it off, and keep going like you would otherwise, or you can knuckle under it. But like either way, like just toughen up if you're in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
And what I'll say about with Sanders this time around is like you can be positive and only talk about the things you like about Sanders. You can engage critically with his political rivals or opponents or critics in the media. But guess what? Like you're going to be treated the same way. And guess what? If you're not a white guy, you're going to be and still support Sanders. You're going to be treated even worse. So it's like you're just going to have to deal with it.
Well, I just find it very suspicious the motivations of all of these people who will prevaricate in order to smear someone running to be the first Jewish president of the United States. I think that's a milestone that we should all hope for and we should all support.
There you go. But here's the other thing, though, and I guess like if you're looking to engage on this issue, like I can't like if you supported Sanders in 2016 or consider yourself left of liberal and like or progressive or even just liberal in any way, how could you in a very much still ongoing primary possibly choose Warren over Sanders? Look, I've already made my peace to the prospect of like voting for her in the general, and that's something for everyone else. No matter who the candidate is going to have a decision that they have to come to on yourself based on your own moral calculus. But as long as Sanders is still in the race, why not go with the person who has unqualified support for Medicare for all, which you cannot say of Elizabeth Warren. And I'll even give credit to that Vox guy, Dylan Matthews, for being honest and just outright saying, I don't believe Warren supports Medicare for all, and that's good because it's like it won't happen. It's an unrealistic healthcare plan that we shouldn't expend political capital on.
It's because Warren decently aligns with their class interests, and for them, things like Medicare for all are about as meaningful as what the MAGA challenge rappers were talking about. Whatever, and I listened to the raps, and I'm trying to suss out, okay, this is a young person, what their exact affinity to Trump is. Like, what are they getting out of this? And it's nothing material whatsoever. It's nothing that they could ever possibly hope to explain. It's just a miasma of signifiers that they've adopted because the mass media environment has more or less driven them insane.
Lil Trump bitches love, journalists hate me, cause I'm building walls and call them ice, baby. 50 on my wrist, eating burgers daily. Bitches Lil Trump, call my dick climate change. Bitches Lil Trump, shoot you up and make a stain. Do it for the people. Fuck the fame, got my AR-15. You know I open carry, coming for my guns, something about Mary.
I think that goes for, the mirror image of that is on the Democratic side of everyone who logs on every day and is immersed in the news, which, as Felix points out correctly, is not healthy or useful. You can't do anything about the news. All it does is increase your anxiety because you're not moored to any greater movement or thing or community, anything greater than yourself and your personal consumer choices. So to them, supporting a presidential candidate is just another consumer choice, another signifier that will help them, piece together a personality and maybe some affinity with another supporter of that candidate.
And again, to just underscore what I said earlier, there is a way out of it. The way out of it is not to like just stop consuming the news or even going on Twitter, but again, understanding that it's
you're not going to stop posting.
I mean,
so.
it's like a drug. It's like, manage your drug habits like we do everything else. But the point is like, is to take action and as part of a political group or an organization larger than yourself, joining the Sanders campaign, volunteering your time, even just sending money. Whatever, but just understand that you will be called, no matter, like, you're going to have to toughen up because no matter what, you're going to be called a racist, a misogynist. You're going to be slandered as everything that is vile about Donald Trump and the people who support him.
But, I don't worry about it that much because I'm sure you saw the video outside. I want to say this was New Hampshire. I don't know. It was some cattle call. It was either New Hampshire or Iowa recently. And when the candidates show up to these events, they bring their teams, all wearing the candida's T-shirt,
right, yeah.
holding signs, and then they have a chant leader. It's like
it was in Iowa, by the way.
That was Iowa.
That was in Iowa.
Okay, yeah.
That was at the steak fry.
Yeah.
That was a steak fry. Yes. And it's they have like a cheerleader for the candidate, and they're all singing their version of the MAGA challenge, but for Pete Buttigieg. And I don't even know what they rhyme Buttigieg with, but
getting head.
Yeah. And of course, like famously, Bernie does not do that. He has his volunteers go out and canvass that area instead of, performing for the media. But anyway, I bring that up because I'm sure you saw the most recent video of that, right?
Oh, yeah.
I see, a person there who's probably working for the campaign, but might be a volunteer might just be a supporter. And I think, okay, I'm not worried about what that individual believes. And I can't really devote any time to convincing that person of one thing or another, or even just bothering myself with trying to understand what's happening in their brain, because that's a waste of time.
I think, Matt, you had it exactly right. The clip that I'm thinking of with Klobuchar and her supporters, she was doing the David Byrne Life During Wartime and Stop Making sense.
No, not that one. The one where he's running one, where he's like on the incline.
Can we just hear a little clip of Life During Wartime? That'd be dope. That's a banger.
I just want to say, Amy Klobuchar, you could tell that her MyGuard genetics had interacted with Turkic conquerors, giving her a natural sense of rhythm. Let's go, baby.
Again, I would just underscore, it's not totally out of your hands. And again, don't allow yourself to be intimidated or be like, let someone convince you out of your own moral sense, because Bernie Sanders, both in 2016 and even more so now, represents about a once every 100-year opportunity that's not going to come around again. It's in your hands, like, to do as much as you possibly can.
And once again, it's 5 months out from the very first votes in the primaries. If you're looking for the exits, here it is. That's door number 2. You can pick it right now if you want, but that's your decision.
Well, we're talking about eternal recurrence. I had just one thought of the future eternal recurrence, linking together these two stories. And, to Virgil and Felix, your point about Elizabeth Warren's, a Native American kerfuffle. I've been seeing more and more people like bringing that back up, and also this Biden corruption thing. I can just see in a few months how people critiquing Biden for being intimately linked with this corruption scandal, or Elizabeth Warren having her bad hits from her past drug up, the absolutely foolish Native American thing. Or, I saw the other day an old story about how Elizabeth Warren profited off of flipping foreclosed homes during the scandal. I didn't look into that enough, or during the collapse. I don't know. I didn't look into that enough to see if it's real or not. But I can imagine the future past of how people bringing up these hits against them as things down the rhetorical line of, hey, wonder if we didn't nominated somebody who wasn't just surrounded by economic and political scandals, being used against Bernie supporters as being like, well, now you're just being Trump. Well, you're echoing all the same criticisms that the MAGA shitheads lob at these people, to the point of being like, well, yes, you're eventually going to have to run against Trump. These things will be brought up. They are legitimate weaknesses. And, the maintainers of these candidates, presences saying like, yes, but to bring them up now in support of another candidate, in support of Bernie Sanders, is playing right into the hands of the conservative people who attack them later. And I don't know where to go with that other than to wonder what you guys think about that, and just note that will certainly.
Well, with the Biden thing, I've seen a number of people say, how dare you even suggest that there's anything to this Biden story? Nobody should be looking into any of this. Instead, we should be focused on Trump and his impeachable offense. And certainly, a sitting president using the powers of that office in order to materially benefit his re-election prospects and a quid pro quo, like, yes, that is impeachable. That's something you should remove him from office. Go ahead, add it to the list. It's number 4071. But the second part of that okay, well, because Trump did this thing and said this thing, then we can't talk about Hunter Biden. We can't talk about the endemic corruption at the highest levels, that the children of the wealthy and well-connected, no matter what party they're a member of, they always get paid off in some fashion. To say that you can't investigate that's now, we cleared that, it's fine just because you said it, that's obviously not that's not a winning strategy. And we lived through this once before, when the media refused to look into things like the Clinton Foundation, be critical of the practices, the investigate the donors of the Clintons in the 2016 election, when because that plays into Trump's hands, and Trump is he is a unique threat to democracy. That didn't kill the story, and that just pushed the story to right-wing media, which obviously has fewer scruples and less competence, and means that the story will mutate and be manifested as mixtures of things that are true or not true, but are nevertheless lurid and convincing to your average person. That happened before, and people are demanding now that it happens again because they think that's smart and that's good strategy. And just having recent history as your guide shows that, no, that is a very, very bad idea to let Biden off the hook just because the president, yes, should be impeached, should be behind bars.
Like, all this shit is going to come up as soon as it's a general election.
And it also becomes central to Donald Trump's relativistic argument, his pointing fingers at the opposition, saying, "Oh well, the Democrats accuse me of being corrupt, but what about Joe's son hanging out in Ukraine?" It's and that creates enough ambiguity to the average person where they're like, "Oh well, I guess they're both crooks, huh?"
And what's so good about that, and you're 100% right, that like the overwhelming consensus seems to be that it's gauche or bad form to talk about any of these things, or that like basically everyone needs to, like, with a wink and a nod, just kind of get on board. And not.
And I'm not saying I understand it, but people are explicitly saying, "Oh, and by the way, there's absolutely nothing to the Joe Biden story." It's like, how do you know?
Well, it's what all those people say about Sanders and why they're terrified that if he gets the nomination, it will be a disaster in the general. Because they're like, "Oh, could you imagine Donald Trump telling everyone that he's a socialist who wants everyone to have free healthcare?" Yeah. It's like, I'd rather have, if I'm just even a partisan Democrat, I'd rather have that fucking debate in the general than Elizabeth Warren having to try to explain again why she said she was a Cherokee.
Oh, absolutely. It would be a redux of the Republican messaging against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which just makes her more popular and shows her positions to be sensible, and as well would enable us to have a general election that is about a substantive point, which is whether neoliberalism is working or whether we need to drastically change course, drastically realign our economy.
Like I said, this is a once in 100-year opportunity, and it's not coming around again anytime soon. So keep that in mind.
It'll probably come around in a few more cycles, but things are just going to be worse by then. So
who knows?